Jackson.
Yeah, he is special. And Bill, there's something else special here. Hey, who's this big fella?
Hey, I'm sorry to
Hey,
interrupt
David.
your. Good to see you, Phil.
Good to see you, man.
You betcha. Sorry, man. I was trying to knock on a door back there, but you don't have a door.
Knock it down.
Knock it down. Hey, Coach, for
Yes.
your viewers out there who don't know, I'm David Baker, president of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And on behalf of all of those of us who love this game and the Pro Football Hall of Fame, it is my great
This
privilege.
isn't right that this is happening right now, but
Okay, never mind.
no,
that.
please come back here, David.
Coach, I want to thank you for all you've done for the game, for all you're going to do for the game. And I want to welcome you to Canton, Ohio, where your bronze
Hey!
your legacy is
How
going to
about
live
that,
forever.
Bill?
Gosh. Folks, as you see him hugging his wife, V, his daughter, Megan, as tearful as Bill is.
Wow. Wow.
Hey, check, Mr. Baker, good to see you again, buddy.
That's really good.
Hey, folks, keep this in mind.
I know David.
29,000 people who played the game, coached the game, or contributed to the game. Bill Cowher is now the 327th one in the Hall of Fame, 182nd living one. Coach, speech.
I just tell him, B, I says, I've come to grips. I'm okay. If it doesn't happen, I've been so blessed. And I would just say this, for those 8 candidates, every one of you deserve to be there. Football is a total team sport. I had some great players, some great coaches, the best organization in football. I've lived a blessed life. I've come to the best network on TV. It's a family here like it was a family that we had there. And to have to give back to something, to the game of football, it's been a part of my life. The virtues that it teaches you, the morals that you have the obligation to move on, the platforms that we have. I'm a blessed man.
Bill.
Yeah, a lot of ways,
Bill.
this is not supposed to be like this. I don't know. I don't think it's hit me yet. Like I said, I don't know.
Your guy Pat Kerwin is over there like a proud dad. You know what I mean?
Pat
That's the
Kerwin,
question about it.
and thank you for everything that you did, honestly. And it's just been, what can I say? I mean, I just think about the players. I just talked to Rod Woodson last night, and and hopefully he can get back into coaching, and talk to John Harbaugh, Andy Reid. I mean, my gosh, you're talking about a mentor, a guy that I think should be in Hall of Fame too.
Absolutely, he will be.
The game of football needs these men. Bill Belichick, what he stands for. Bill Belichick means a lot to me. I mean, I learned a lot from him.
And there you have it right there. Congratulations, Bill Cowher, to getting in as a 327th member, as you heard it there, by James Brown, NFL and CBS. Biggest surprise of the day, I think, prior to the Titans bouncing out the Ravens in the AFC divisional playoffs in the 2019 playoffs. Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Man of Steel podcast. As you know, I am Charles the Project Ritchie. You can usually catch me streaming every Mondays and Wednesdays at 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. And I'm still, I don't know about anyone else, but as I said in my post or comments, I'm trying to pinch myself to see if this is actually real. I mean, if I'm actually dreaming this. Bill Cowher, one of my all-time favorite coaches in Steeler history. And I've been a Steelers fan my whole life, diehard since 04. And Bill Cowher's always resonated with me a lot more than anybody, always been consistent. Just like Mike Tomlin was, how he took the reins back about 13 years ago. And just to see this man finally get his due and finally getting a gold jacket. And not only that, too, the Pittsburgh Steelers right now, they now separate themselves from the San Francisco 49ers as they break a tie with them for the time being, as they got 28, 49ers got 27 members in the Hall of Fame. And what can you say for a guy like Bill Cowher? a guy who's coached in this league for 15 years as head coach. Then later on, after he finished playing in his football career, I mean, he started that in 1985 after being a linebacker with the Browns and the Eagles. And right around that time, I think when he was with the Eagles, he that's where I think he met Mari Schottenheimer. Mari Schottenheimer, who actually convinced him into becoming a coach and coming out as a player. Went on to become an assistant coach with the Cleveland Browns back in 1985. He started off as a special teams coach, then became a defense back coach back in 1987 for 2 seasons. Then after that, he was defensive coordinator for 3 seasons with the Kansas City Chiefs. And shortly after 3 years being defensive coordinator with the Chiefs, Chuck Noll was already retiring after 23 seasons with the Steelers. No doubt about it. I mean, going into that organization, he definitely knew he was going to have some big shoes to fill. Trying to replace a legend and a guy like Chuck Noll, who had one of the greatest arguable Super Bowl dynasties of all time at that point in the NFL. I mean, a perfect 4-0. Despite at the time of his retirement, the 49ers would go on and match their Super Bowl record. But you look at a guy like Bill Cowher and everything that he's meant to that organization. I think one of the biggest things we have to look at with a guy like Bill Cowher, he is another shining example of what it meant to this organization for a team, like I said, who was about 84 games under 500 before they selected a guy like Chuck Noll through Dan Rooney and was dad art. And I give Dan Rooney a lot more credit for that. But kind of similar in a way, once Chuck Noll's teams were like on a decline in the 80s, where pretty much they had at least 3 more legitimate runs, even though they have 1 more playoff appearance to make it 4. But I mean, at that time in 89, that Chuck Noll 70 Super Bowl team was pretty much well depleted. And he went through some losing battles at that time. I mean, Chuck Noll was and always will be recognized as the coach in Steeler history. But when you look at a guy like Bill Cowher, when he came into it and inherited the reins of a guy like Chuck Noll's team that he had to rebuild through the draft, he definitely obviously kept the system in play. But for his first 6 years as coach, if I'm not mistaken, he matched Paul Brown as the only other coach, I believe, in NFL history to make the playoffs for his first 6 years as a coach. I know Bill Cowher, he definitely gets a lot of criticism prior to this election. I mean, when you look at the rest of the finalists, and this is just really, I think, just impressed me the most. It's just that how early we've seen someone get in the Hall of Fame like this. I'm not so sure if he's like the first one in NFL history right now to have that honor, but still, I mean, that is pretty impressive. I mean, for a guy who after retirement and had to wait quite a while to get in, I mean, he had to wait at least on his 9th try to get in. And I think the biggest indictment, I mean, for that, I mean, when you look at like his fellow peers that were in there too, as far as coaches, and which, by the way, the finalists are going to be announced on Wednesday. Even though Bill Cowher, he's going in, there's no turning back on that. He's already been inducted. But when you look at his fellow peers, like guys like Don Coryell, Tom Flores of the Raiders, Coryell of the more famously of the Cardinals, and then later on with the Chargers. And then you have Mike Holmgren of the Packers and Seahawks, Jimmy Johnson of the Cowboys primarily, who then later on had 4 more seasons left with the Dolphins. And then you also look at Buddy Parker, Chicago Cardinals, Lions, and Steeler. Dan Reeves was another damn good coach too. I mean, with the Broncos, Giants, and Falcons, despite not winning Super Bowls, and last but not least, Dick Vermeil. But when you look on the list of coaches, Bill Cowher is third amongst them in career wins with 161. Dan Reeves was number 1 with 201 victories with 174 losses. Then you had Mike Holmgren with 174 and 122 losses. And Bill Cowher, 161 wins, 99 losses, and 1 tie. 62% of his games that he's won. I mean, Bill Cowher, when you think of a guy like this, I mean, who's obviously waited a long while, and you watch the way he coached his team, the way he was able to motivate men on this team, I mean, just incredible. I mean, for what he's contributed and what he's did, I mean, in that overall time. I mean, one of the most impressive stats about Bill Cowher, I thought that really stood out when following this guy, and was his record when he had a double-digit lead going into the 4th quarter. And I think that was the biggest thing. And his lead with a double-digit lead in the 4th quarter in his career, he was 81-1, 98 win percentage. That is by far a mind-boggling stat, if you ask me. A guy right here who, when you look at the overall embodiment of what was turning the fortunes of this franchise around, contributing, making it a winning culture, and to keep that thing going. I mean, you look at Bill Cowher, I mean, overall, I mean, his coaches that he had employed underneath him, I mean, throughout his overall tenure. I mean, here's some real notable ones when you look at. You had guys like Dick LeBeau, obviously, defense coordinator. He didn't really do well as a head coach, but I mean, he was just real good as far as working with the 3-4, mastering it, help bring in the blitz packages. I mean, this was a guy right here, I mean, Dick LeBeau, who had a real good tenure with this team, who came in with the Steelers. I mean, under Bill Cowher, he coached him for 2 seasons from 95 to 96. And then later on, his final 3 seasons together with Cowher, returning back in 2004 after failing as a head coach with the Bengals. I mean, you look at just the overall intensity they brought. I mean, you also have other guys here like Marvin Lewis, great coach in the regular season, not so much the playoffs, but still, I mean, he's a guy who's still very well respected despite his track record in the playoffs. You also have Bruce Arians, another big name right here too. I mean, who was his wide receivers coach. Bruce Arians, I mean, was one of the guys aside from Kevin Wisenhunt who's more effectively helped got through the Ben Roethlisberger, helped take his game to the next level. Granted, it will come under Mike Tomlin's tenure at that point in time, but I mean that it is what it was. Bill Cowher, I mean, for all he's did, I mean, even Brian DeArlo just reminded folks, Bill Cowher had the most dubious tasks of trying to keep his team at the top of the mountain and in contention without a quarterback. I mean, the closest quarterback he probably had that was probably somewhat legit, I mean, in his time was probably Neil O'Donnell. I mean, people will definitely bring up Cordell Stewart. I have mad respect for Cordell Stewart for what he's did, his contributions there. But Neil O'Donnell, I mean, who only made the Pro Bowl one time, but still, I mean, I think if you need someone, a quarterback to ride your offense and have good defense to feel the benefits of, he tried for that team. I mean, obviously he had some turnovers, some costly ones. 94 AFC Championship game, the Super Bowl they lost against the Cowboys. I mean, Bill Cowher almost stopped a very good dynasty-led Cowboys team for their third back in 95. And I remember just as a kid watching that Super Bowl 30, I was excited. And just to see them in the Super Bowl, my heart was racing for them. It was definitely a lot more talk about Cowboys just being the cream of the crop, and they're going to finish off where they left off a few years prior, and that they're going to continue to roll on teams, including the Steelers, trying to win their third Super Bowl without Jimmy Johnson, who had a shaky breakup from Jerry Jones and the Cowboys. So when you put all that stuff in the perspective and what he's had to do, I mean, the bottom line was he kept his team as solid winners. Period. He helped embody the attitude, the pride, the passion. Every time I watch this guy coach, he coached like he was a boxing trainer. He was always going to keep them focused and on the same page and just make sure that they were playing smart. I think even prior to like finally getting to a second and final Super Bowl, they finally won. Even before that, I think one of the biggest memories, and I want to hear your memories later on. I know I'm on here a little late, but whenever this podcast is finished or you guys want to, feel free to leave me a comment. What moments do you think of the most when you think of Bill Cowher and his legacy for the Steelers? What really resonates with you? Do you think of necessarily that 05 run where they had their backs to the wall, they had to do it as a wild card, 11-5 record. I mean, they had to run the table, I think, at that point to really give themselves a legit shot at getting in and run the table if they were going to have any hopes of winning the Super Bowl, which they did end up doing. But also, too, I mean, how about from 92 through 94 or 95, or 93 from 95, when the Steelers acquired Kevin Green in free agency, a guy who helped this team contribute to bring back the attitude Steelers of the 70s steel curtain that people miss seeing. You had Greg Lloyd on there. You had Levon Kirkland on here. And you think of all the notable players on here who really just represent as far as being Steelers. I mean, you also have Rob Woodson, who Bill Cowher inherited from Chuck Noll's staff. Another guy, too, you can make an argument for is Mike Vrabel, who's actually now the coach of the Tennessee Titans, more or less a player under Bill Belichick in his career, who went on to win 3 Super Bowls, but doing really impressive right now as a coach in his 3rd year with the Tennessee Titans. I mean, this guy who's has a winning record in 2 seasons, 18-14, and just remarkable the run that they're making right now. So again, leave me your thoughts, comments. I can follow on Twitter at Prodigy Richie, at Masteel CJR, at Masteel Nation for my Facebook page, Instagram, Masteel Nation, of course, my YouTube channel, Masteel Podcast. And I want to get in right now, too. Let's transition a little bit away from Bill Cowher. We'll get back to him a little bit later on. If you guys want, feel free to leave me some comments. What do you think about the rest of this class for the Hall of Fame? I mean, as far as like the centennial players that could be on here. I mean, the only player you got left pretty much for the Steelers right now is Donnie Shell. What do you feel like Steeler Nation, the over-under is going to be right now as far as like 2 more players being in the Hall? Over-under. I tell you what, I'm going to have to probably put it at 2 if you were to ask me. And the reason why I say that, I think Donnie Shell, he's getting hit with a dubious task right now. I mean, Donnie Shell, who came into the league undrafted, Stan Severn, who did a wonderful interview. I saw it yesterday while I was working out, and sat down and talked to him in an exclusive interview. I believe that's on Steelers.com, but nonetheless, I mean, you look at all the guys, I mean, they have in the Hall of Fame here, a lot of these guys do represent that Steady Steel Curtain team on here. And when you think about it, too, I mean, where you look at it, you already have at least about 10 representatives from there, whereas players and coaches and owners, or you could say 10, 12 people. Is it more a conspiracy where the Pro Football Hall of Fame is just getting tired of just, for a team, if you're having like more players get in from the Steelers, is it just too many Steelers players in there and we need to have other guys get in despite how great they were contributing? That's what I look at. And I'm not so sure if that's the case, but a guy like Donnie Shell, aside from winning 4 titles with the Steelers, 4 Super Bowls, who was a 5-time Pro Bowler, 3-time All-Pro, who's waited, obviously, a long time. And a lot of people and teammates like a Franco Harris, Mean Joe Green, I mean, guys who play with this guy, really trying to make a big case and vouch for this guy. I hope he gets in. But, I mean, you also got a guy, too, who's not Centennial finalist. I'm talking about none other than guard Alan Faneca, who's also been waiting quite a while. A guy who retired after 2010 seasons. This will be his 5th attempt to try and get into the Hall. Super Bowl champion from Super Bowl 40 with Cowher, 9-time Pro Bowler, 6-time All-Pro, who played left guard, left tackle, and center in his career. And then you also got right now Troy Polamalu, who's part of the finalists. And Troy Polamalu, I think he'll definitely get in his first attempt. Only because of his body of work. I mean, you have a guy like Bob Pompeani who pointed out to me very kindly, who's the host of the Bob Pompeani show on 93.7 The Fan. I mean, who could be followed at KD Pomp. That when it comes to this Hall of Fame voting, one of the biggest things that they pay attention to so much is definitely the All-Pro selections. Troy Polamalu has 4, while a guy like Ed Reed had 5 with 9 Pro Bowls. So is it more so that he, the stuff that he did as far as like the game-changing stuff, is it more stuff that's just not going to appear on his stat sheet per se? I really start to wonder on that, because when you look at his numbers and when you compare it to like his other people on here, I mean, like his other safeties or like defensive backs, he has just as much interceptions on here. I mean, his peers of defense backs will be with Steve Atwater, Leroy Butler, and John Lynch. He's got the second most interceptions in that group, behind Leroy Butler of the Packers, former Super Bowl champion as well. But like I said, none of these guys got Defensive Player of the Year. So I believe when you have the total package, I think that is just as much importance to get in. Why it gets the edge. And that's where I'm going to leave it at. And right now, let's just conclude this real quickly. I know a lot of Steelers fans had to be smiling watching that Ravens-Titans game. Let me ask you something before I close out here. And do you think if John Harbaugh were to win this game, even though they're out of it, let's just say if they did go on to win the Super Bowl this year or next year, what ahead of Mike Tomlin, would you guys, as Steelers fans, view Tomlin differently? Do you think that John Harbaugh will definitely have a clear edge as far as coaching-wise? What do you think? Do you think having that second ring definitely separates him? Or that Tomlin, what he's did this year, especially with the depleted talent that he had with injuries, it's really not much of his fault. Or it's just sometimes he's just got to do more better adjusting or make some tweaks in the coaching staff. What do you guys think? For right now, we don't have to worry about that. I definitely felt like the Titans in this game tonight, when you really look at things and what the Titans were just able to do and just to manhandle the Ravens the way they did in the style that they did. I just feel like one of the biggest things that really just like jumped out at me was just their pass defense was just so efficient. I mean, they were +3 in turnovers, 2 interceptions by the defense, and a fumble recovery. And not only that, too, I think another biggest thing, too, was the pass rush of the Titans, who had 4 sacks for 20 yards lost on the Ravens. But let's not kid ourselves. The player of the game, no doubt about it, is continuing to be, is Derrick Henry. 195 yards rushing, 202 yards for scrimmage, 7 yards off a reception. Even though he didn't have any touchdowns in this game, I got to tell you right now, this Titans team is looking pretty hot and scary for teams. They're going to be on the road to meet the winner of the Chiefs-Texans game. Who you guys got the rest of the way? Because I had earlier today, I definitely picked the Niners over the Vikings. I definitely had the Titans in an upset over the Ravens. And then I also did say that I was going to go with the Chiefs and the Seahawks. So those were my picks for this weekend. No, I take that back. I did pick the Ravens. Excuse me. I picked the Ravens. I picked every home game except for the Packers. I really believe that the Seahawks got a legitimate shot at upsetting the Packers. But I will say this about the Ravens-Titans. I really did feel that the Ravens were beatable if the Titans got a hold of them. This was a dangerous matchup for them. And I got to tell you right now, I mean, for what John Harbaugh did with Lamar Jackson, and as far as like catering to him, building a team all around him, it was definitely a big thud. And like I always tell people, as great as you are in the regular season, you got to show up in the playoffs. Still a young guy, obviously, clearly still the future of that team at quarterback, but they're going to have to figure something out how to get him to that next level. And that's going to do it for this edition of the Men of Steel podcast. Like I said, I couldn't be any more ecstatic that Bill Cowher is finally in. Congratulations, Coach. You definitely deserve this. Beautiful moment to see with his family, his wife, Megan, and V, which I believe is Veronica, in here. And it was just so beautiful to see him in this, get this moment and have to share with his family. One thing that always resonated about Bill Cowher, despite his great coaching as a football coach, family was always first. He was a family guy. He was there for his daughters in every moment. Even when he decided to step down from coaching, he even said that they were thinking about moving to Carolina, and he wanted to be there every step of the way. He always made sure he remembered the people that was important to him. That is a true quality of a person. That really makes the mark of a coach. And like Chuck Noll would even say to his players, it's life beyond football. And that's going to do it for this edition of the Men of Steel podcast. I hope you enjoy it. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe to my YouTube channel, Men of Steel Podcast, or like the Men of Steel Podcast page. Once you do find it, search your Men of Steel Podcast. You can always search it too once you click the like button at Men of Steel Nation. That's capital M, capital S, capital N. And once again, I can be followed on Twitter at ProdigyRichie, at Men of Steel, CJR, Instagram, Men of Steel Nation, and of course my YouTube channel, Men of Steel Podcast. As I always leave you, don't be trolling, be rolling. Here we go, Steelers. Here we go. I gone.